Hey everybody, Ben here. Today, I'm going to show you my Logitech wheel settings for F1 2018. So, this game is pretty new, and of course, a lot of the Logitech wheels, especially my Logitech G27, they're getting a little bit older, so the game hasn't fully been optimized for it, so there's a couple of things we need to tweak. Not much, actually, surprisingly. So if we go here into our options controller, settings, schemes, you can see I have a scheme that I've set up. If you're on PC, I've put this on the Steam Workshop. You can get it off there. If not, you can't, obviously, if you're not on Steam. Button mappings on there. So let's go into it. Edit. Okay, so button mappings, that's kind of a personal preference. Just something to let you know, my Logitech profiler setting, I have the allow game to make changes option checked, so I didn't really change anything in the profiler itself. I did everything in-game here. Out of the gate, there are two things that I noticed that you really have to adjust. They were steering saturation and force feedback. We'll get to force feedback in a second. Essentially what steering saturation is it's how much rotation it takes to get to full wheel lock. So it's basically degrees of rotation, if you're used to that. It comes at 0, so for my G27 that's 900 degrees of rotation, which in an F1 car is not realistic. We want about, a little past 90 to be almost full lock, especially somewhere like Monaco or something like that. So what I did is I played around with the steering saturation here. I got it up to about 48. This is where I think it should be. Somewhere between 45 and 50 is probably the range that you want to be in. It's going to be a little bit of personal preference there. I didn't really touch any of these other settings. I'll come back and talk about some of them if there's a couple of specific issues you're having once we cover force feedback. The biggest problem with F1 2018 when you have a Logitech wheel is that the force feedback is way too strong. When I started out, it was set at default settings, which is like 100, I think roughly 100 on everything. Anyways, that's way too much. The wheel is clipping, it's vibrating back and forth just by going in a straight line if you bought them, or just tire effects and things like that. It was way too much. What happens when you have force feedback that's too strong is essentially it kicks the wheel, and if it kicks it enough, it's essentially affecting your steering angle, and you're going to be fighting the wheel a lot, and you're not going to be able to react quickly to oversteer moments and things like that. It's not like realistic kicks of the wheel either. It's like trying to simulate the rear end of the car and things like that, or bumps. So it's not good to have force feedback that's too strong. It's also really freaking loud. The Logitech is a geared force feedback system, so when you get clipping and really strong force feedback that vibrates back and forth, it actually makes a lot of noise, and it's really annoying. So what I did is I tuned it down to about 50 on the overall strength. This is still probably on the stronger end. I've been tuning it back a little bit as I drive more and more to be able to react to slides and things like that. A little bit less force feedback is nice. So 50 on the overall strength. On track effects, this is bumps and track surface and things like that, down to 30. Same thing with off track. You could maybe tune this up a bit if you want, when you run into the gravel or something, it really to vibrate, but just kind of is loud for me. The rumble strips, I do want to feel those, so I have it tweaked up a little bit. I did click in one more bit of wheel damper. This is just how the tires feel through the force feedback. I wanted more tire and probably less track effects. I might play with this a little bit more, but it didn't seem to make a huge difference at the lower ends. It starts out by default at 5 as well, so I didn't tweak it too much. It's mainly these track effects are just way too strong, and the overall force feedback is way too strong. I did leave the enhanced understeer on. This is kind of nice, it just lets you know when you've reached the limit of grip, because you can't actually feel it. Okay, so that's basically all you need to do to set your wheel up for F1 2018 if you have a Logitech wheel. I have heard that other wheels, the force feedback was too strong as well, so you might consider that if you have a different wheel. Okay, back to some more nuanced tweaks. So as I said, I have it to where about, a little past 90 degrees of rotation from center is full lock. So, about there's full lock, but realistically we're going to about here. I might up it a little bit. What that does is it makes the wheel very sensitive, and with the Logitech wheels, they don't have good force feedback in the center of the wheel, so they can feel a little floaty. If you're not comfortable with this, there's two things you could do. You could put in a little bit of wheel dead zone, like one click maybe. That would mean that, these minor deviations don't do anything in-game to the wheel. That's not an ideal solution. What might be better is to play with the steering linearity. What this means is it means as you increase the linearity setting, it says high linearity values make the center less sensitive. So that means turning here is going to do less than turning out near the edges of your turning radius. So that would make those minor deviations in the force feedback less of an issue on track. So if you're having trouble weaving, that's something you could do. If your pedals are a little bit older and maybe the sensors aren't perfect and you maybe need to clean them, throttle dead zone and brake dead zone is something you could put in if you have a little bit of throttle on when you're not actually pushing it, but I really recommend cleaning your sensors at that point. The brakes on the Logitech are not the best, so one general tip I have for everyone is if you're struggling with brake locking on any car, turn down the brake pressure in the setup of the car. You could also do that in here. The linearity setting might be able to do that, where you could increase it. That would make small pedal movements less extreme compared with larger ones when you get towards the end of the brake pedal. Not an ideal situation, but yeah. Anyways, that's basically it. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'm going to be doing some F1 2018 streams in the future here, and I hope you'll join me for those. That's it. Bye for now.